Good morning. A quick recap of what happened over the weekend. The nation commemorates 9/11. It's now been 21 years since the terrorist attack that killed nearly 3,000 Americans.
Around 60 flights were delayed at Newark Airport in New Jersey Sunday. A suspicious unattended package in a restroom caused an evacuation.
Credit card companies are set to tag firearms-related purchases using a special code. Second Amendment advocates argue this will place lawful gun owners under surveillance.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is expecting the economy to slow in the coming months. Find out why she says gas prices could spike this winter.
And a marching band, yellow t-shirts, and traditional costumes. A Falun Gong parade in Poland celebrates the ancient values of truth, compassion, and tolerance, and the freedom to believe.
Good morning. Welcome to NTD. I'm Kevin Hogan.
Good morning, and I'm Evelyn Lee. Happy Monday. It's September 12th today. And over the weekend, citizens across the U.S. solemnly remembered 9/11. It's now been 21 years since the terrorist attacks on American soil claimed close to 3,000 lives. Here's a look at yesterday's events.
A moment of silence in New York City on a somber Sunday 21 years after the September 11th terrorist attacks. When Al-Qaeda hijackers flew airliners into the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and the eventual crash into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, killing nearly 3,000 people.
It should not take another tragedy to unite our nation.
At the September 11th memorial in New York City, family and friends read the names of their loved ones.
Howard Lee Kane, Jennifer Lynn Kane, firefighter Vincent D. Kane, Engine 22.
While at the Pentagon, President Joe Biden attended a wreath-laying ceremony where he paid tribute to those killed there.
This is a day not only to remember, but a day of renewal and resolve for each and every American.
Biden also referenced the drone strike which killed Ayman al-Zawahiri earlier this year, saying the al-Qaeda terrorist leader would never threaten the American people again. The president also shared what he sees as the greatest lesson learned from 9/11.
We regain the light by reaching out to one another and finding something all too rare, a true sense of national unity. To me, that's the greatest lesson of September 11.
On the anniversary of a day we will never forget.
Reports of a suspicious package at Newark Airport in New Jersey delayed around 60 flights on Sunday. Officials say everyone on the first level of Terminal C were evacuated as a precaution. TSA say they received a report of an unattended item in a restroom. Now surveillance footage is being reviewed to find out who left it there. Police say they removed a pipe-like device during their investigation, and the FBI will test it to determine its makeup. Authorities gave the all clear and reopened the lower level at 1:45 p.m. The FAA stopped flight activity for arriving flights until 2:30, and Newark Airport tweeted that some roads around the airport were congested after the reopening.
And speaking of roads being blocked, heavy rain swept through Chicago on Sunday. The National Weather Service, or NWS, issued a flash flood warning for part of northeastern Illinois, including Chicago's northern metro area. The rains flooded basements and alleys, closed grocery stores and restaurants, and sent cars floating under viaducts on streets. And the NWS said that after the heaviest rains ended, the roads would remain flooded until the water receded. The city on Twitter urged residents to avoid driving through standing water on streets, viaducts, and low-lying areas. Chicago's Water Management Office says extreme rainfall events that are very local, very intense, and hard to predict have increased in recent years. Such rains can dump 2 or more inches per hour. This can overwhelm neighborhood sewers, fill water mains, and push water into residents' basements via private drains. As a result, the city has begun installing water blockers that prevent sewers from flooding but can worsen street floods.
And U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says gas prices could spike this winter. She says the possible price increase could come because the EU plans to stop buying Russian oil for the most part, and because they might ban services that allow Russia to ship oil by tanker. Yellen says a Western price cap on Russia's oil exports is being designed to keep prices in check. The amount of the cap has not yet been determined. The G7's price cap plan calls for participating countries to deny insurance, finance brokering, and other services to oil cargoes priced above the cap on crude and oil products. Yellen says the cap is aimed at lowering revenue Russia could use to wage war in Ukraine and at the same time maintain Russia's oil supplies to keep global prices down.
And in other news, California Congresswoman Karen Bass says her Los Angeles home was burglarized Friday night. The representative says thieves stole 2 firearms. Police have released an image of the suspect. Bass was on President Biden's shortlist to be his running mate in 2020. She has served in Congress for 6 terms and is currently running for mayor of Los Angeles. California has attracted attention in recent times due to increasingly brazen incidents of smash and grab and follow home robberies. Meanwhile, homicides are up 51% compared to 2019, and burglaries in Los Angeles have increased by 15% this year compared to last year. Despite this, Bass gave her neighborhood a 10 out of 10 at a debate last year when asked to rate how safe she feels walking around it. From crime to guns, credit card companies will begin applying a new code identifying sales at U.S. gun stores. Pressure from gun control activists led to the new system. Gun rights advocates are objecting to the move. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more.
Visa announced on Saturday that it is ready to join other major credit card companies and implement a new merchant category code for U.S. gun retailers. It will identify transactions at firearm stores. Gun control activists say it will help better track suspicious surges of gun sales that could be a prelude to a mass shooting. Second Amendment advocates argue the move would only put lawful gun owners under surveillance. The code will show where an individual spends money, but not what items people purchase. Recent shootings like the one in Uvalde, Texas, have added to the long-running U.S. debate over gun control. That attack killed 19 children and 2 teachers. The National Rifle Association denounced the change, calling it an erosion of Second Amendment rights. They say the decision to create a firearm-specific code is nothing more than a capitulation to anti-gun politicians and activists, and that it aims to erode the rights of law-abiding Americans one transaction at a time. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
In other news, the ancient discipline of Falun Gong is practiced across Europe, among many other places. A parade in Poland over the weekend celebrated the beauty of the practice and its principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. Over 1,000 European Falun Gong practitioners traveled to Warsaw to attend the event, which also asked for an end to the persecution of Falun Gong in China. NTD's Jane Werrell was there and sent us this report.
A parade celebrating the beauty of an ancient practice, Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa.
Falun Gong practitioners from across the world have gathered here in Warsaw, which is the capital of Poland. And as you can see behind me, they're practicing this peaceful exercises, and there's also a meditation component. Part of the parade also shows the repression that they're facing in China.
But on the streets of Warsaw, people are free to practice. A traditional dragon dance lit up the city, followed by lion dancing.
I've been feeling like this sort of buzz from being here around so many people all, believing in good things, truthfulness, compassion, tolerance, and that's what brings us together.
Victoria and her husband James travelled to Poland from England. The practice of Falun Gong has a place deep in their hearts.
In Chinese philosophy, there's a saying in the Tao, and my understanding of that is it's like being in this flow of life. And I find when you do the exercises, you are naturally more into the flow of life. And so what happens is naturally your decisions become more aligned with that flow. And so you make better decisions, you waste less time. That's a big one.
They've been fitting in the exercises early in the morning.
when we're more diligent, which we've been a little bit better recently, getting up at 5 in the morning and practicing, it just sets your day right. And it's hard to get up. It's hard to go to bed that early, and then it's hard to get up that early. But if you do it, it's like that little bit of effort translates to a smooth day. Yeah, it's nice. But it does, it takes effort. It takes effort.
It's not always easy,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it does, you put that effort in and then everything feels smoother.
Among those in Warsaw is Polina, who says the practice has helped her stay calm. Dressed in traditional Ukrainian dress, she now lives in Poland due to the war in Ukraine.
It helps me to feel harmony inside, even if it's rockets and bombs. It can bring healthy harmony, truthfulness, kindness to all people for all the world. So today this is like celebration of this practice.
One theme here is that of peace.
It's pretty much about people believing that it's good to be good, because the principles of Falun Gong are truthfulness, compassion, forbearance, and this has a very wide appeal. If you actually want a peaceful family, peaceful society, these teachings are something that could greatly help. Just as in the past there was Socrates who raised some alarms and imparted the wisdom to their people, I mean with Falun Gong you will find truly deep wisdom.
A sense of wisdom that these passers-by appreciate.
To help each other and take care of your own space inside you. It's really nice, to look into it. Not just take care of material stuff, but also soul and body and all of those things. Yeah, so that's nice.
Like enjoy the moment generally, right?
Yeah, to connect with yourself. Yeah, it's important. I think those days, connect with yourself. It's really important to get know what you're feeling about, what do you feel, what do you want to feel. Not only focus on bad things, on a lot of things that around you, just to look into you.
Practitioners in China have stayed strong in their faith, despite being persecuted for more than 20 years under the Chinese Communist Party. Some of the members of the marching band have faced suppression in China.
When I first heard them yesterday, I had a few tears because I don't know why it touches me so much. They're just really moving. Their performance just feels really heartfelt. I can just freely practice. That's really a wonderful feeling. And I felt like that is embodied in the marching band. Anyway, I gotta go.
When the sound of the marching band leaves the streets, the appreciation of having the freedom to believe will no doubt stay. Jane Worrell, NTD News, Warsaw.
Just ahead, Russia abandons its main stronghold in northeastern Ukraine. It comes after Ukrainian forces made rapid advances, allegedly recapturing large parts of the region. And Prince Charles is officially proclaimed King Charles III.
That was a shooting gallery up there.
I could hear the tremble in his voice.
She suffered a fairly severe beating. The video is pretty graphic.
Justice for us seems almost impossible.
It's not fun to watch somebody die, and they knew she was in mortal peril.
They have not asked the hard questions. Why was the Capitol intentionally unsecure that day?
The FBI had information about security concerns before January 6th.
They're out for blood, and they're getting it. They appear to be winning.
Were the actions of the Capitol Police out of line? Were there violations in use of force?
Now I describe it as an inside job.
I'm ready to do whatever God calls me.
Welcome back. Moscow abandoned key cities in northeastern Ukraine on Saturday after Ukrainian forces made a rapid advance. Russia's defense ministry says it ordered troops to leave the area. NTD's Kostem Ines has the story.
Russia's defense ministry said on Saturday that it was pulling troops out of its main stronghold in northeastern Ukraine. A sudden collapse of one of the war's principal front lines after Ukrainian forces encircled the area in a surprise advance. Video posted on social media showed Ukrainian troops driving past a tank bearing the Russian pro-war Z symbol in the city of Kupiansk, shortly after capturing the single railway hub that supplies Russia's entire front line across northeastern Ukraine. That left thousands of Russian troops abruptly cut off from supplies across an area that has seen some of the most intense battles of the war. A separate social media video showed Ukrainian military at the entrance of Izium after Moscow abandoned the city. Russia's defense ministry said it ordered troops to leave the area in order to reinforce operations in neighboring Donetsk. The swift fall of Izium is Moscow's worst defeat since its troops were forced back from the capital Kyiv in March. It could prove to be a decisive turning point in the 6-month war, with thousands of Russian soldiers apparently abandoning their ammunition stockpiles and equipment. Ukrainian forces report recapturing dozens of towns and villages held by Russia for months, since bursting through the front line just days ago. Video just released by Ukraine's Ministry of Defense showed troops raising the country's blue and yellow flag in Balaklia, from where Russian forces recently fled. But despite the counteroffensive in the region, the war rages on. Russian rocket fire hit Kharkiv Saturday evening, bringing yet more death and destruction.
And let's look at what's happening in the UK. The state funeral for Queen Elizabeth II will be held at Westminster in London on Monday, September 19th. Queen Elizabeth passed away at the age of 96 last Thursday after serving for 70 years, and her son Charles was officially proclaimed king on Saturday. The royal coffin will leave her Scottish estate on Sunday. It will be driven by hearse to Scotland's capital, Edinburgh, before departing for Westminster. On Friday, Charles addressed the public for the first time as their new head of state in a televised broadcast. People who lined up outside Buckingham Palace waved and cheered as King Charles III left the palace. Britain has declared a period of mourning until the state funeral. Leaders from around the world will be there, including President Joe Biden, who confirmed his attendance on Friday.
And Britain's Imperial College will close 2 major research centers. The centers are sponsored by Chinese aerospace and defense companies. It comes as relations soured between China and the West, leading to a crackdown on academic collaboration with China. Both centers have had long-running partnerships with China's leading civilian and military aviation supplier. Combined, they have garnered almost $10 million in research funding for cutting-edge aerospace materials, high-performance batteries, and jet engine components. The centers said their goal is to advance civilian aerospace technologies, but critics have repeatedly warned that the research could also advance China's military ambitions. Imperial College has confirmed the 2 centers will be shut by the end of the year. The closures follow an earlier warning by the heads of UK and US intelligence agencies of the espionage threat posed by China to UK universities. It highlights the government's hardening stance on the issue.
And in other news, Typhoon Muifa brought heavy rain, violent winds, and official warnings of high waves. It passed close to Ishikagi Island in Japan's Okinawa prefecture on Monday. Officials from the Japan Meteorological Agency warned that winds near the storm's center could reach speeds of up to 90 miles per hour, with gusts reaching up to 130 miles per hour. Muifa, the 12th storm of this year's Pacific typhoon season, is expected to continue traveling north towards the east coast of China over the coming days. The storm follows on the heels of Typhoon Hinamnor. That storm pounded parts of Japan's island of Kyushu with heavy rain just a week earlier and forced flight cancellations. And up next, the tennis world is declaring we have entered the age of Alcaraz, as Carlos Alcaraz wins the US Open to become the youngest player ever to be ranked #1. And much love for mushrooms. Find out why Pennsylvania celebrates the humble mushroom. That's when we come back, so stay with us.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
At The Nation Speaks, we don't just scratch the surface. We want to go wide and deep. Our viewers come away with a much richer understanding of the issues of the day. We really make a big effort to bring on different voices onto the show. We don't just talk to experts and newsmakers, which of course are extremely important, but we also want to hear from the American people. So the people who are impacted by the policies and issues that we're talking about, because what they have to say is just as important to the national conversation.
Good to have you back with us. Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz has won the U.S. Open, giving him his first Grand Slam title. Alcaraz beat Norway's Casper Ruud on Monday evening. Here's more.
Winning the US Open has pushed 19-year-old Carlos Alcaraz to a #1 ranking by the Association of Tennis Professionals. This makes him the youngest male #1 in history, besting Leighton Hewitt's record of achieving #1 at 20. Alcaraz defeated 23-year-old and 5th seed Casper Ruud in 4 sets, dropping the second set. This was the first time in their 3 meetings that Ruud won a set against Alcaraz. Alcaraz is the youngest player to win a Grand Slam since Rafael Nadal won the French Open in 2005, and is the youngest US Open winner since Pete Sampras in 1990. Alcaraz won the US Open following 3 matches of 5 sets, a feat only achieved once before by Roger Federer. Alcaraz's coach and former world #1, Juan Carlos Ferrero, says it's a surprise to everyone except maybe to himself, as he had seen Alcaraz's talent. In his hometown of El Palma, a township of 24,000, more than 2,000 people packed the streets to watch the game on a big screen. This is Flinders Kingsley, NTD News.
And just a few hours away from New York, a very different event. The 37th Annual Mushroom Festival was held over the weekend in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. Growing, cooking, and eating, but why celebrate mushrooms? NTD's Flinders Kingsley with the story.
Mushrooms are much more than the butter mushrooms found at the supermarket. Mush more. Kennett Square Pennsylvanians know this, and it's why they host the annual Mushroom Festival. Mushrooms come in over 10,000 kinds and have some amazing health benefits.
Lion's mane prevents Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease. Pretty powerful.
They have protein in them, they have fiber in them, but they also don't have any fat or cholesterol. So for people who need to watch, that's a very beneficial thing.
Mushrooms are low in sodium, high in potassium, B vitamin, copper, and vitamin D. So how do we get them into our diet? Luckily, the festival has produced some mushroom recipes.
Rice, I boil the rice with the stem of the portobello mushroom so that gets the mushroom flavor.
The recipe, a portobello with peanut powder and peanuts on them, you can eat that instead of having a piece of meat, and they work beautifully.
And mushroom innovations.
And so we make jerky from the stem of shiitake mushrooms. The stem is the part that most people discard, but we repurpose them into jerkies.
Mushrooms are grown in soil made from recycled waste products, like cotton. Growers can produce around 50 to 75 million pounds a year, and the leftover soil is recycled into some of the best potting soil in the world. Buschiani Foods have been growing mushrooms since 1925.
Mushrooms are so sustainable. It's unbelievable. You know, we've been green since there was a word for it.
But now mushrooms are becoming more popular.
And mushrooms are kind of trending right now, so I got on the trends and kind of made it my whole shop around it.
The festival knows mushrooms are for eating, so they made it into a competition. 23-year-old Frank Zhang won his first ever amateur competition. He would have eaten more, but there wasn't mushroom left in his stomach.
I'm very full. I want to throw up.
Let's not forget the mascot, who everyone thinks is a fun guy. But his name is actually Fun Gus. Flinders Kingsley, NTD News.
Fun. And they're really useful in nature too, actually. One way plants are used in fungi is by tapping into the dense networks to communicate with chemical signals. Did you know that? That's fascinating.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Well, and you know, Evelyn, speaking of fungi, when I was camping, I used to forage wild mushrooms and eat them.
That sounds just very brave of you, to be honest.
Yeah, it can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, but I knew these mushroom farmers that would tell me if it was okay. I ate lobster mushrooms, hedgehog mushrooms, and chanterelles. Those are edible delicious.
Yeah, good. Good to know.
And speaking of Mother Nature, France's Mont-Saint-Michel was surrounded by the waters of the Channel on Sunday as the tide reached its highest point this year. The site exceptionally remained open to the public on Saturday night to allow visitors to enjoy the view from the iconic Abbey. The Abbey was founded in 966, built on a sanctuary dedicated to the Archangel Michel, but it was in the 13th century that work began on the Gothic centerpiece's architecture with towering walls and soaring pinnacles. Tourists began flocking to the Abbey, and the village that arose in the shadows of its walls in the 1980s. That's after it was designated a World Heritage Site. The site was the most visited of France's national monuments in 2021, despite a 4-month closure due to COVID-19 restrictions. And you know, that really does have some old world charm.
I know, right? And it was one of the most important pilgrimage destinations during the Middle Ages.
Yeah, and you know, something else was really cool about it is that the actual shape of it resembles the way that the hierarchy was of the feudal society. You know, for example, the divine, or in this case, the archangel is on top, then comes the abbey and monastery, and then the great halls, and then you have stores and housing, and then outside the walls is housing for farmers and fishermen.
That's awesome. That's so interesting. Learned something new today. And on that note, that's all for today's program. We'd love to hear from you. Before we go, you can share your thoughts and your story at goodmorning@ntd.com. But that's all from us now. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good day. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.